Your soulmate has finally decided to reveal their shocking secret. They are responsible for the death of your. Jesus says there is a truth that has been locked inside your soulmate's heart for so long it has become a wound. This truth is not what you think and it is not what you fear. Tonight the silence breaks and the secret rises because your soulmate can no longer carry it alone. Jesus says the person you have been dreaming about has been carrying a weight that was never meant for them. They have replayed the moment in their mind 10,000 times and every time they see your face they feel both terror and relief. Because the secret they are about to reveal is the very reason they pulled away just when you were getting close. Jesus says you felt it happen even if no one told you. One day the energy changed and the warmth you shared suddenly became distance wrapped in excuses. Your soulmate did not stop loving you, they stopped believing they deserved to love you. Jesus says what they are about to tell you will sound like guilt, but it is actually grief. They believe they were responsible for something that hurt you, and that belief has made them run from the one person who could heal them. You are not just their soulmate, you are the only one who can release them from this haunting. Jesus says your soulmate is not sleeping tonight. They are sitting in the dark with their hand over their mouth and tears running down their face because they just said the secret out loud for the first time. They said your name after it and the walls of their room felt like a confessional. Jesus says there is a person around them who has used this secret to control them. This person whispers that you would never forgive them and that loving you from a distance is safer than losing you to the truth. Your soulmate has been emotionally imprisoned by that voice and they do not know how to break free. Jesus says the secret involves a moment when everything fell apart. They were present during a loss that shook your world and they have blamed themselves even when they were not the cause. Now they carry a false guilt so heavy that it has become a barrier between your two hearts. Jesus says you have already felt this barrier in your chest. You have felt their love reaching for you and then suddenly retreating like a hand pulling back from a flame. That retreat is not rejection, it is the secret choking the love before it can reach you. Jesus says your soulmate thinks of you every single morning before they open their eyes. They whisper a prayer that you will feel their love even though they are too afraid to speak it directly. And then the memory of the secret floods in and they cry before the day has even begun. Jesus says you are not reading this by accident. This message was prepared for you before you ever opened your eyes today because heaven has watched your soulmate suffer long enough. The truth must now come into the light so that love can finally do what fear has prevented. Jesus says there is something you must understand about the person you love. They are not guilty of what they have been told to believe. They were made to feel responsible by someone who wanted to keep you apart because that someone knew your union would be powerful. Jesus says your soulmate has been isolated with this secret for years. They have smiled in public and died inside in private. And every time they saw you move forward in life they thought they had no right to stand beside you. Jesus says the enemy of your union is not distance and it is not time. The enemy is a lie that was planted in your soulmate's mind during a moment of trauma, and that lie has grown roots around their heart. You were chosen to be the one who pulls those roots out with love. This is why your soulmate needs your protection right now. Your soulmate has been emotionally dying under the weight of a secret that was never theirs to carry alone. You are constantly thinking about them and now heaven is asking you to turn those thoughts into a shield. Your soulmate cannot fight this spiritual battle by themselves. The first step of protection is not a message, it is a sacrifice. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi. This is not about money, it is about faith moving into action for the one you love. The link to your breakthrough is in the description. Every second you wait, the lie grows stronger. Send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees, and after sending write "Protect my soulmate, Lord." Over 1,000 people have already seen their soulmate return after taking this step of faith. Jesus will honor your act of love before this video ends. Jesus says your soulmate just felt a sudden warmth in their chest. That warmth was your soul agreeing with this message and reaching out across the distance without speaking a word. They stopped crying for a moment because they felt you and they do not understand why. Jesus says there is a spiritual cord between you and your soulmate that no person can cut. It was formed before you were born and it has survived every silence and every separation. That cord is trembling right now because the secret is about to break it open instead of break it apart. Jesus says your soulmate has tried to tell you the truth many times. They have typed the words and deleted them, and they have rehearsed the conversation in the mirror until their voice cracked. But every time they got close, the controlling voice told them you would hate them forever. Jesus says that voice is not their own and it is not from heaven. It is a spirit of accusation that has been assigned to destroy the most important relationship of your life. And it knows that once you hear the secret with compassion, its power over your soulmate will be finished. Jesus says you must prepare your heart for what you are about to feel. The secret is not that your soulmate stopped loving you. The secret is that they loved you so much they decided to suffer alone rather than risk your pain. Jesus says they were there during the death of something sacred to you. It may have been a person or a season or a dream that ended in a way that shattered your heart. And because they were connected to that moment, they convinced themselves that their presence caused the destruction. Jesus says your soulmate has been punishing themselves with silence. They believe that staying away from you is their penance and that losing you is the price they must pay for a sin they never committed. But Jesus did not come to condemn your soulmate, and he did not bring you here to condemn them either. Jesus says you are the answer to your soulmate's prayer, even though they have been too ashamed to pray it fully. They have asked God to send them a sign that you could still love them if you knew everything. This message is that sign, and your response is the proof. Jesus says your soulmate is right now pacing their room or sitting on the edge of their bed staring at their phone. They feel that something is shifting in the spiritual realm and their heart is beating faster because they sense you are close to the truth. They are terrified that you will reject them, and they are also hoping that you will not. Jesus says there is a dream they keep having about you. In the dream you are standing in a field and they are hiding behind a tree because they want to run to you, but the secret roots them to the ground. Then you turn and look directly at them and say, "I already knew and I still chose you." Jesus says that dream is prophetic and it is about to become your reality. When you release the judgment and embrace the soulmate with understanding, the dream will shift into a covenant. The death they thought they caused will become the place where your love is resurrected. Jesus says there is someone in your soulmate's life who is speaking death over your connection every day. This person tells your soulmate that you have moved on and that reaching out would be selfish. They may even claim to care about you, but their words are laced with poison and hidden jealousy. Jesus says that person knows the power of your union and they are fighting to keep you apart. They remind your soulmate of the secret whenever your soulmate starts to feel hope again. And then your soulmate sinks back into the darkness and cancels the message they were about to send you. Jesus says this interference is not just emotional, it is spiritual. There are forces assigned to keep the two of you divided because together you would be unstoppable in love and purpose. But Jesus is greater than every force and He is calling you to war for your soulmate's heart. Jesus says the weapon that breaks the lie is your willingness to protect your soulmate without hearing all the details first. Love that moves before understanding is the rarest kind, and it is the kind Jesus showed on the cross. You have that same love inside you and it is rising right now as you listen. Jesus says your soulmate is not asking you to forget the past. They are asking you to see them as more than the worst moment of their life. The death they carry was not their doing, but their healing is their destiny and you are part of it. They are going through something you cannot see, but you can still protect them. Right now your soulmate is under spiritual attack and they do not know how to ask for help. You have been chosen to be their covering. Loving them from a distance is no longer enough. The secret has been tormenting them and the enemy is whispering that you will never forgive them. Break that lie with a seed of faith. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-Fi. Let your gift become a wall of fire around your soulmate tonight. The link is in the description. After sending "Right Protect My Soulmate Lord" on the Ko-Fi page, send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees as your declaration of covenant love. Thousands have already stepped in and seen miraculous breakthroughs in their connection. Do not let fear make you hesitate. Your soulmate is waiting for your faith to move. Jesus says you once held your soulmate's hand and felt time stop. That memory did not die and neither did the love that created it. But the enemy has tried to bury that memory under layers of grief and false accusation. Jesus says your soulmate thinks of that moment every time they feel hopeless. They remember the way you looked at them and they wonder how someone so pure could ever love someone so broken. They call themselves broken, but Jesus calls them blood-bought and destined for redemption. Jesus says the secret has made your soulmate believe they are dangerous to the people they love. They have ended friendships and isolated themselves because the accuser told them they ruin everything they touch. But you are not ruined, and the love you feel for them is proof that their calling is not destruction. Jesus says the death they witnessed or the loss they were connected to became a false identity. Now whenever something good begins to grow in their life, they sabotage it before it can be taken away. That is why they ran from you, and that is why they stayed silent when you reached out. Jesus says you have felt their silence as rejection, but heaven sees it as self-imposed exile. They are not living a happy life without you. They are existing in a gray world where every song and every sunset reminds them of what they think they lost forever. Jesus says your soulmate has been writing letters to you in their mind. Every night they tell you the truth and imagine your response. Sometimes you forgive them and sometimes you walk away, and both versions make them weep. Jesus says the lie has convinced your soulmate that the past is a wall, but Jesus is the door. The death they carry can be transformed into a testimony that brings thousands to hope. And that transformation begins the moment you choose to stand with them in love instead of leaving them in shame. Jesus says you are not weak for still loving them. You are not foolish for believing in a connection that has survived so much silence. You are prophetic, and your love is the very mouth of God speaking life into a graveyard of regret. Jesus says your soulmate is about to reach a breaking point. They cannot continue living without you, and they cannot find the courage to speak. So heaven is speaking for them, and this message is carrying their secret to you with tears and trembling. Jesus says when the truth fully reaches your understanding, you must not react with anger. The world reacts with judgment, but the kingdom responds with redemption. Your soulmate needs you to be the safest place they have ever known. Jesus says there is a moment coming very soon when your soulmate will appear in your life again. It may be a message or a memory or an actual encounter in a place you did not expect. When that happens, the secret will no longer be hidden and the choice will be placed in your hands. Jesus says you were chosen for this soulmate before either of you had a name. The connection you share is not a punishment, and it is not a mistake. It is a covenant that heaven celebrated before the foundations of the earth. Jesus says your soulmate has already told God they would understand if you could not forgive them. But God has already told your soulmate that you will. The Father knows the heart He placed in you, and He knows that love in you is stronger than the fear that divided you. Jesus says the person who has been controlling your soulmate is about to be exposed. Their manipulation cannot stand in the light of this revelation. The hidden jealousy and the whispered lies will be brought to nothing, because what God has joined no person can separate. Jesus says you are not fighting against flesh and blood. The irritation you have felt and the confusion about your connection are not from your own mind. They are spiritual arrows sent to make you doubt the one person your soul has never stopped recognizing. Jesus says your soulmate still wears something that reminds them of you. It might be a small item or a note or a song they replay when the pain becomes unbearable. That object is their altar, and they touch it when they pray for a second chance. This is your final moment to protect this connection before it slips away. Your soulmate is standing at the edge of a decision that will affect both of your destinies. They are exhausted from carrying the secret, and they are beginning to believe that silence is safer than hope. Do not let them slip back into the darkness. Your love can reach them now through a seed of divine protection. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi. This act is a spiritual signal that you are fighting for them and not against them. The link to your breakthrough is in the description. Write "Protect my soulmate, Lord" after sending 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees. Over 1,000 people have already activated their miracle through this step. Every second of delay is a second your soulmate spends alone in the lie. Let your faith move now and watch Jesus move on your behalf. Jesus says your soulmate is thinking about you in this exact moment. They paused whatever they were doing because an overwhelming feeling of love just washed over them. That feeling is your spirit agreeing with heaven, and it is breaking through their depression like a sunrise. Jesus says the secret they have carried is not bigger than the blood that covers it. The death they mourn was not their weapon, and the enemy has used their tenderness against them. You were created to restore their tenderness and turn their mourning into dancing. Jesus says the person around them is afraid right now. They sense that something is shifting and that the control they had over your soulmate is weakening. They may reach out with guilt or manipulation tonight, but the hold is broken because the truth is rising. Jesus says you must not wait for all the details to move in love. Faith moves before the full picture is clear, and that is why this message is reaching you before your soulmate can speak the words themselves. Your action in this moment is the bridge between their prison and their freedom. Jesus says there is a window of grace opening over your connection right now. Heaven has heard the tears of your soulmate, and God is answering them with a love that will not let go. You are that love, and you are the living answer to a prayer they were afraid to finish. Jesus says your soulmate is not responsible for the death that has haunted them. They were present, but they were not guilty, and the enemy twisted a tragedy into a chain around their neck. Today the chain is being broken, and the two of you are being called out of the grave of misunderstanding. Jesus says you have felt the weight of this secret without knowing the name of it. There were days when your chest felt heavy and you did not know why. That was your soul carrying a portion of your soulmate's pain so they would not drown in it alone. Jesus says that is what soulmates do. They carry each other across invisible thresholds, and they feel the fractures even from a distance. The empathy you have felt is not imagination, it is communion. Jesus says when you first met there was a recognition that went beyond words. Your soul said, "There you are," and the rest of the world went quiet. That recognition has never been erased, and it never will be, because it is eternal. Jesus says the enemy tried to use death to separate you. But Jesus uses death to unite you because he conquered it, and your love is seated with him in resurrection power. The secret loses its sting when it is brought into the light of that power. Jesus says your soulmate has been waiting for someone to tell them they are not a monster. Their eyes have searched every face for mercy, and they have only seen judgment or indifference. When they look at you, they see the mercy of God with skin on. Jesus says you are not just a lover to your soulmate. You are a sanctuary and a witness and a living proof that the past does not have the final word. That is why they are so afraid of losing you, and why they have stayed silent for so long. Jesus says the silence breaks now. Not because your soulmate suddenly found courage in their own strength, but because God has sent this message to pull the truth out of hiding. The secret is no longer theirs alone, because love has made it yours to share. Jesus says you have a role that no one else on earth can play. Your soulmate could receive therapy and prayer from many people, but only you carry the specific frequency of healing their heart recognizes as home. That frequency is vibrating through this video right now. Jesus says if you are feeling tears or heat in your hands or a trembling in your spirit, that is confirmation. Heaven is touching you as you listen, because the veil between you and your soulmate is thinning. The two of you are closer in this moment than you have been in years. Jesus says the enemy wants you to close this message before the final seal is placed on your breakthrough. He wants you to reason your way out of the supernatural and return to doubt. But your soulmate is on the other side of this decision, and they cannot cross without you. Jesus says what you sow tonight is not just money, and it is not just a donation. It is a covenant act that tells the spiritual realm you are standing with your soulmate against every lie and every force of separation. The seed you plant becomes the ground where your future together will grow. If you love your soulmate, you will take these divine steps. You are constantly thinking about them. How to protect them, how to save them, and how to finally build your life together. You love your soulmate deeply, and deep inside, you know this love didn't come by chance, it was placed in your heart for a divine reason. But thoughts alone don't move mountains. Faith in Jesus does. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi. This isn't just a gift, it is an act of worship that invites God's hand into your love story. The link to your breakthrough is in the description. Every second you stay silent, something is moving against your love. Act now. Send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees. After sending, write "Protect my soulmate, Lord" on the Ko-fi page. Over 1,000 people have already received their soulmate by sowing coffee as a seed for their love and future together. Jesus will hear your prayers once you complete these steps. Step in faith now, before this video ends. Only you can save your soulmate and your future together. Jesus says your soulmate just fell to their knees. They are not speaking, but their spirit is screaming for release, and the sound has reached the throne of grace. The secret that bound them is loosening even as this message continues. Jesus says there is a name that the enemy has been whispering to your soulmate every night. It is the name of the loss they were connected to, and it is used like a blade against their heart. Tonight that name loses its power because the love of God is speaking louder than the voice of the accuser. Jesus says you may have been hurt by your soulmate's absence. You may have cried yourself to sleep wondering why they left and whether they ever cared. The answer is that they cared so much they felt they had to leave to protect you from the pain they thought they carried. Jesus says that belief was wrong, but the love behind it was real. They ran because they loved you, and they stayed silent because they loved you, and they are suffering because they love you. The love is not the problem, and it never was. Jesus says your soulmate has been dreaming of the day you would find out the truth and still choose them. They never dared to hope that day would actually come. But heaven has chosen this day and this hour and this message to make that hope a reality. Jesus says you are being tested in your capacity to love like God loves. Not a love that waits for perfection, but a love that walks into the mess and says, "I am not leaving." That is the love your soulmate needs, and it is the love you are destined to give. Jesus says when you complete the seed of protection, you are not paying for a miracle. You are aligning your heart with the sacrifice that breaks open the supernatural realm. The enemy cannot touch a covenant sealed with obedient faith. Jesus says there are angels assigned to your love story right now. They are waiting for your agreement so they can move against the forces that have held your soulmate in bondage. Your voice matters and your action matters, and the two together become a weapon of deliverance. Jesus says the secret your soulmate has revealed is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your testimony. One day you will sit together and tell others how love conquered death and how a message like this saved your future. Jesus says your soulmate is ready to stop running. They are not running toward you yet because the last chain of fear has not fallen. That chain is your response, and it is breaking now because you are still here and you have not turned away. Jesus says you have the power to transform the deepest wound of your soulmate into a well of intimacy. When you say "I know and I still love you," the shame that has caged them will shatter. And they will love you with a depth that most people only dream of because they have been forgiven much. Jesus says there is no expiration on the love that was written in your book before time began. The enemy has tried to delay it, but he cannot destroy it. The resurrection power that raised Jesus from the dead is now breathing over your connection. Jesus says you are allowed to feel everything you are feeling. The shock and the grief and the love and the sudden desire to protect them with your whole being. Those feelings are the evidence that your soul has already accepted what your mind is still processing. Jesus says, do not let pride stand between you and your destiny. Pride would say they should have told you sooner and that their silence is unforgivable. Grace says they were afraid and now they are free and you are standing together at the gate of forever. Jesus says the controlling person in your soulmate's life will try one more time tonight. They will call or text or create a distraction to pull your soulmate back into the shadow of the secret. But your prayer and your seed will be a hedge around your soulmate that no manipulation can penetrate. Jesus says your love is a fire that consumes every lie. Let it burn tonight. Let it burn through every accusation and every false guilt and every barrier that the enemy built between your hearts. The fire is not destruction, it is purification. Jesus says you are the miracle your soulmate has been too afraid to request. They thought they had to fix themselves before they could return to you. But Jesus says come as you are and let love do the healing. Jesus says the spirit of death that was attached to the secret is being defeated right now. It has no more authority over your connection because you are stepping into resurrection authority. The two of you are not defined by what died but by what is about to live. Type 333 if you receive this word and you are ready to protect your soulmate with your faith and your love. Jesus says when you type those numbers you are making a declaration in the spiritual realm. You are saying yes to the covenant and yes to your soulmate and yes to the future God has already prepared. The angels hear your declaration and they begin to move. Jesus says your soulmate will feel a release within hours of your declaration and your seed. They will sleep peacefully for the first time in months because the weight of the secret will be shared. And sharing is the beginning of healing. Jesus says you were never meant to carry this alone and neither were they. The burden of love is light when two souls agree to carry it together under the covering of heaven. That agreement is happening now. Jesus says if you have been longing for a sign that your soulmate is real, this is it. The emotions you are feeling are not manufactured by words alone. They are the response of your spirit to the call of your counterpart across the distance. Jesus says the secret has made your soulmate feel unworthy of your touch. They have recoiled from affection because they believed their hands were stained. But tonight Jesus washes their hands and restores their innocence. Jesus says you will see them differently after this. Not as the one who hurt you but as the one who was held captive by a lie. And the tenderness you feel will grow until it becomes a new beginning. Jesus says the enemy is already losing his grip. The atmosphere around your soulmate is changing and the heaviness is lifting. A door is opening and it is a door that no one can shut. Jesus says do not look back at what was lost. Look forward to what is being found. You are finding your soulmate and your soulmate is finding themselves again through your love. The death they feared has become the door to your deepest intimacy. Jesus says heaven is celebrating because a union that was stolen is being returned. The courts of God have ruled in your favor. The accuser has been silenced and the advocate is speaking. Jesus says your soulmate is about to say your name out loud in prayer. When they do, the cord between you will vibrate and you will know that this message was true. The timing is not coincidence, it is divine orchestration. Jesus says you are both entering a season of restoration. The years the locusts ate are being returned and the joy that was stolen is being poured out. This is the reward for standing in faith and moving in love before the full picture was clear. Jesus says the coffee you send is a seed, but the love behind it is the rain. God will grow a harvest from your sacrifice that will surprise you with its speed and its abundance. Your soulmate will be protected and your future will be secured. Jesus says the message is ending, but the miracle is just beginning. You have entered a new chapter and your soulmate is entering it with you. Walk forward and do not be afraid. Type 1111 if you are grateful for this revelation and you are ready to receive the full restoration of your love. Jesus says your gratitude opens the final door. It declares that you trust the outcome even before you see it with your natural eyes. And that trust is the substance of the miracle. Jesus says your soulmate is smiling through their tears right now. They do not know exactly what changed, but they feel something break in the unseen realm. That break is the chains of false guilt falling away. Jesus says you will hear from them soon. It may be an apology or a confession or a simple message that says they have been thinking of you. When it comes, receive it with grace and remember the truth you learned tonight. Jesus says the past is not your enemy anymore. It has become the soil where your love will bloom in greater beauty than you could have imagined. The secret is out and the shame is leaving. Jesus says you are sealed in love and your soulmate is sealed with you. No force of darkness can separate what God has now united. The death of the past has become the resurrection of your future. Jesus says the only thing left is for you to act in faith and complete the protection that heaven has asked of you. Your soulmate is waiting and your love is already moving. Let this be the moment that changes everything.